Today's episode of Running It Back reaches new heights. I'm on the road this week recording new episodes. I'm away from the LA studio, and that means Andrew Ramirez, my brother, is live in person for the show. Andrew and I are side by side if you watch the video version of this. But not only that, we're zooming in Chris Cordova as well as we run it back today. Chris, of course, is the curator, creator, manual laborer, and tyrannical CEO of the Instagram page, The Chuco Life. Andrew is the curator of the Instagram page, Murder Mecca, talking all things true crime. Both have been on the show before, but now worlds collide as we do serious pod today. So, what are we running back? Well, 23 years ago, a movie came out that became an institution. An institution for one actress, a region of the country, and pop culture as well. That movie is Selena. We talk the crime itself, the cultural impact, the music, we trash family members, and of course, we dive into the categories. It all happens right here, and Chris and Andrew lend their thoughts and experiences. Hey, Andrew and Chris, I'm muy excited. Selena, right now. All right, we're here. Let's do this. And with me today, Andrew Ramirez of Murder Mecca. But not only, Chris Cordova, the curator of El Chuco Life on Instagram, is joining us as well. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing all right. Don't forget the shout out to VHS Texas, my dog.
I forgot your subsidiary company, VHS Texas.
Hey, we had a good March. Let me say that. We had a good March. Knocked it out of the park this month. A lot of people have those VHS notebooks in their hands.
Yeah.
Here in
Chris,
April, thanks to...
Those VHS notebooks are so legit. Can you tell us a little bit, how do you make those? All I know is that I was at my parents' house, and one day I walked out of their front door and there was a shopping bag filled with VHS notebooks. And I just knew that you had dropped them off. And I was looking at them, and you had a Die Hard one. You had a Dazed and Confused one, maybe. How do you make that stuff? How do you punch the holes in that bad boy?
There's a machine. There's like a puncher machine. I use with that, and I chop up the boxes with the blade, and make VHS notebooks.
It's the real deal. It's the real deal. You drop.
I know you. I know. I was. You guys had been like talking about like Independence Day on some of the other podcasts you do, and you guys were talking about Blair Witch. So I buy those in bulk. I buy the VHSs in bulk. So like I had a lot of those titles already. But I did look out for that McGee and Me that you guys requested a couple Christmases
I can't imagine anybody requested VHS notebook covers of Christian-oriented movies from the late 80s and 90s.
Right. For anyone who doesn't know out there, McGee and Me was like a late 80s, early 90s Christian series starring Nick Martin. I would love if you got a notebook with some McGee and Me on there.
I think we're the only ones to ever watch it.
Low viewership on that. Chris, I have to ask you a question about your notebooks because this has been burning in my mind for quite some time. What are some of the legal stipulations?
We went through this. Chris always answers this in a satisfying way. I asked you this last time. It's because, hold on, maybe I have this right. You actually physically own the VHS movies, right? And then you're putting the actual cover of the movie box into a notebook that you punch the holes in.
Correct.
Right. So these are the actual movie box.
Right.
These are the movie boxes of the actual movies. So it'd be different if I was going out and trying to video or like digitally image that onto some cardboard, recreate the boxes myself. If I do that, that's illegal. But since I already own the VHSs, that's mine.
The part I didn't know. Yeah, I thought, I didn't know you were actually owning these video boxes. This is the real deal.
So I'm out there. Those are real boxes of real video cassettes that were found in Blockbusters in the 80s, 90s, 2000s.
So
I see.
what you found is like some type of loophole where like so long as you own the VHS, you're allowed to punch holes in it and then sell it as a notebook.
I wouldn't go that far, but
Well,
trying
I
to-
think it's a perfect melding of all the worlds because we have almost sort of 3 generations of El Paso-ness, our hometown, you, me, then Andrew, and we're combining it into a running it back of the movie Selena. 23 years old,
Correct.
this movie is. Came out in 1997. Big movie for J-Lo, of course. Big movie for us as a city as well. And then Tejano music. You could put a bunch of stuff into it, but like before we break down all the categories of it, 1997, let's start with Andrew. When did you first see this movie?
So my memory might be a little wrong here, but from what I remember, we saw this movie in Ruidoso, New Mexico. It was
Really?
one of those family trips.
I was with you?
I think so.
Oh,
You might have, if you weren't with us, you had some type of excuse where you didn't have to be with us this weekend. But I remember watching the movie in New Mexico in a tiny little theater and being completely stunned by it. I had no idea who Selena was when I saw this movie. So this was kind of my first experience with J-Lo. Additionally, it was my first experience with Selena. So I was a little heartbroken and a little sad, but I'll never forget watching the movie and knowing this is not going to end well. They don't make movies like these unless they're going to be a little bit sad, because why haven't I heard of this person? So I also, for the record, I was 6 years old when this movie came out. So it was a lot to deal with at the time. And I was totally blown away. We also had a family member who started to dress like Selena after this movie came out. So the invasion of Selena into my life was like kind of big. And I remember this movie kind of as like a big experience in my life. So Selena really meant a lot to me when it came out. And it was nice to like kind of revisit it for this podcast.
when did you see it, Chris?
Andrew, one question,
Fire away.
follow-up question. Who was your family member that was dressing up like Selena? I've gotten to meet a lot of the Ramirez fam over the years, so
Chris is sort of like a de facto
Would you
family member
prefer-
of ours.
I don't think there's any reason to keep this person anonymous right now. So I'm going to go ahead and dox her. Her name's Amy Lechuga, and she's from Eastside El Paso.
Amy, I know Amy.
Just to touch on a couple of the style points. Selena, in my mind, is, in addition to her incredible musical talent and personality, if we're going straight objective fashion, it's big belt buckles, tight jeans, 90s lips, and 90s bangs. And you could almost go down the check boxes for how Amy Lechuga like embodied that look in the 90s. Not only that, people would come up to her at Sunland Park Mall and tell her she looked like Selena. So I would be hard pressed to say this was a coincidence, but it really worked well for her. And she rode the wave. Honestly, she rode the wave, and she was one of many who really embodied that Selena look. So we got to give it up for Selena for bringing the music in, but we also got to give it up for J-Lo for kind of reinvigorating.
Chris is
that
applauding.
look. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, it was important. I'm sure, Chris, you've got some Selena examples in your life too, where some people just started looking like Selena. It was so powerful when it came out.
Selena was sort of like the sports jerseys for women. You found your favorite
Yes.
athlete and you wore the sports jersey. That was the women version of it.
You know, she was a big deal, especially for Texas Latinas at the time. I wouldn't say there was a lot of mainstream representation there. So I would definitely agree with you that quite a number of people adopted some of the Selena signature looks. I think a lot more now. I think Selena has just that movie is kind of timeless. It doesn't age it ages well. It ages really well.
Yes.
And I think Selena is just so part of Latino culture at this point that I think some of the looks and definitely that's a very popular Halloween outfit, especially the
Oh,
the
yes.
Houston rodeo purple outfit is quite popular in the San Antonio, Austin areas where I reside, and it's I think her influence has just grown and grown, compounded, if you will, over the last couple of years. Um, yeah, in '97, though, just to get back to your point, Patrick, I was 22 years old. I was about a junior in college, and I recall because they shot a lot of that movie around San Antonio. So there were a lot of calls for extras. And at that time, I was really into the film scene in Austin. And we would like look out to because I had been an extra in Varsity Blues, which had shot in '98. And I was an extra in The Faculty, which had shot around Austin, Robert Rodriguez movie. And I recall they would not let me on the set of Varsity Blues because I wanted to wear a Morrissey t-shirt. And they're like, no, 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 no. Go put on the high school shirt. And we had it out there. But
no Morrissey t-shirt for Texas high school football, Chris.
yeah, like I
was
like, come on, you don't believe there's like one moody teen at this high school? It's just,
Oh,
but
you could have been the moody
like,
teen. You're right.
duh, like hello, the role I was meant to play on screen. But I was
Moody
really
teen?
into the I was really into the Austin film scene at the time, and I remember there were like calls for extras throughout San Antonio to be an extra in Selena, and I was trying to make it out there. A lot of friends who went to St. Mary's because um, they were shooting at like some club scenes around the St. Mary's campus or at some defunct club around there, and so there was an opportunity. I could have been an actual extra in the movie, but yeah, it was a big
Wait,
deal.
so
I remember. I just remember the time of her death was huge, and that was right when they were making her crossover album, and it had been released, and so that's coming off a big 95, 96. Then the movie came out, which kind of continued. But I think I didn't see the movie itself until like video. And then I was going to a lot of the events, like special viewing events that they would have around, like Alamo Draft House would have, and then some other like Latino groups in Austin were throwing. But I can talk about some of those later because it as the years grew on, and I just kind of think as being Mexican American, there weren't a lot of Mexican American movies that were geared to our Hollywood. There was like La Bamba, American Me, Selena, some of the Cheech and Chong movies, if you
right.
want to include those. But it's just some of the Robert Rodriguez movies. Kind of the bigger he got, the more kind of white actors he had to put in them. But there just wasn't a lot of film, Blood in Blood Out. And see, I've learned a lot more of this while doing VHS Texas because just being these movies are the ones that are getting requested all the time. And
Yeah.
especially
100%.
Selena, that's a big one.
Well,
But
1997, my thought is there was a few movies in the 90s, if you're a teenager in that age, that are required reading. And for me, there was Friday, Independence Day, and I think you could put Selena in there because I think it was ordained that you had to go to see Selena with your family in the movie theater. You go see it in the theater, and then you had to know all the lines from it. And it was up there with those other two movies. And if you look at, I looked up movies that came out in 1997 also. Here's just the list of Oscar nominees. It's such a heavy movie year. Titanic, As Good as It Gets, The Full Monty, Good Will Hunting, LA Confidential, all 97. And Selena's right in there as one of the higher kind of viewed movies of it. So, and then the other interesting thing is this movie comes out in 97. The murder is in 95. So in 2 years, we already have a movie released and in the theater. And the movie, like, as we'll talk about it, this movie tackles a lot. This is a long movie, and it's going through a whole life. It's going through a lot of subjects. It's a long, long movie. And it's ironic that Selena's life was about crossing over into mainstream, But this movie, essentially, J-Lo is the one who crosses over in this movie. This is her movie that makes her an A+ lister. So it's hitting on a lot of points of it all. And as we get into the categories, we'll break it all down. So thoughts on the movie in general? It's 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think everybody I know saw it at least once. Everybody owned it on VHS when it came out a year or so later. And it just sort of becomes a cultural icon. And then oddly enough, I never heard Selena while she was alive. I didn't know anything of Tejano music. And then you sort of learn all this post her life. Were you aware of Selena during her life, Chris?
Yes.
You did know of her and her music.
I would. Yeah, it like the time of her music was out. I was very much into the punk rock, alternative, indie rock scene. I was not very much into Tejano music at the time at all. I do recall it was a big deal when she played Fiesta de las Flores, and she did that concert. I grew up with a lot of people whose parents were in LULAC, and LULAC would put that event on. And I remember they got Selena, and that was a big deal. I did not go to the concert. I do know a lot of people that did, but that was a big deal. I got a lot of my Selena education by going to Chico's Tacos after nights of being out with friends, and they would consistently play Selena on the jukebox at Chico's from the hours of like 11 p.m. to about 2, whenever the drunks were rolling in and out of that. That was always popular, always consistent. That's where I learned about Selena. But the day she died at St. Edward's, it was like a lot of the people, I was a freshman at St. Ed's. A lot of the people in my class, especially the people from like the Rio Grande Valley, San Antonio, Corpus, it was like that moment, like JFK died, I guess. It was just like, they were heartbroken. They were going to go to Corpus for some of the vigils. Like, it was a big deal. And then after her mainstream album came out, and they were playing her like on VH1 and MTV and more of the crossover, that's kind of where she became part of the mainstream culture, more of an icon.
So if I understand this,
I think there was this big.
I don't want to cut you off, Chris. Go ahead.
No, and that's where she was on People magazine after her death and that sort of thing.
So the thing that blows me away about the whole Selena story is that, well, there's two things. The first thing is that I never understood that she had just crossed over when she was murdered. So it's almost like all of her success was posthumous. So every time you would hear a song on the radio, and it was like a hit, you know what I mean? Like, she only got to enjoy that success for about 10 months and then was killed. So a lot of her airtime was post-death, which kind of lends like an entire new flavor to it, which as a 6-year-old, when a movie starring Jennifer Lopez came out, like when I was 6, I thought Selena was playing herself in the movie. And then when she dies, I thought Jennifer Lopez was murdered. I failed to understand how biopics work as a 6-year-old. So I thought we were actually watching a snuff film. But the thing that blows me away now is that Selena, the movie, does so much for El Paso, Texas. There are I think there's 3 or 4 separate El Paso, Texas references in Selena. And just looking it up right now, all the time she played El Paso, it's amazing. I think she played 7 or 8 shows, even at the height of her fame, she was playing shows in El Paso. So prior to that, I'm sure she was like on the carnival circuit, or the Texas picnic barbecue circuit. So I think I had a totally unique experience being in El Paso and watching Selena. Granted, I watched it in New Mexico. It really meant more to me being in the area where she spent a lot of her career. It blew me away.
I think location is a big part of it. You said it because I remember watching the movie. You're in the theater and there's a scene where she's performing and it says at the bottom, El Paso, Texas. And I remember people audibly applauding in the theater when they see a graphic of their hometown. And then vice versa, there's a scene later in the movie where Selena says, I don't care about El Paso. And people audibly gasped in the theater. They were offended of it. So the hometown of it plays a big, big role.
Truly refreshing to see El Paso referenced in a non-cartel vibe. I think every movie that came out,
we were the dominion of the movie cartel in the 80s, and that was it.
After 2005, you could almost set your watch by that border shot. You know, you knew that was going to be an El Paso shot. You got Man on Fire, you got Sicario, which came out a little later. But it was nice to see El Paso featured in something that wasn't related to drugs. I really appreciated Selena doing that for El Paso. And then it was kind of sad that that faded with her death, you know? So unique experiences for me.
Yeah, so kind of like Patrick had talked about regional comedy acts and regional jokes, like he's come across in his comedy career. You know, to put that in context, Selena had been performing since she was a little kid in the Corpus, Rio Grande Valley, El Paso. You know, in that movie Dolomite, they talk about just like regional acts, and you have to work your regions, and you work those constantly. So yeah, El Paso is definitely part of that scene, especially towns along the Rio Grande, like Laredo, Del Rio. I'm sure she played all these places. Fresno, California, these were like the main spots that, clumps of Latinos in the 80s, 90s were living. And I think it was her dad, he had his bands in like the 60s that would play similar venues. So he already kind of knew what cities to hit. And I guess he was like, I guess once they started playing them on Tejano radio or more of the Spanish speaking radio stations, that's kind of like where so yeah, I think she was just definitely on the circuit of definitely Texas Southwest. So she was already a star here regionally.
Yes.
And by the time she died, she had already been she had already won the Grammy. She had already won. She was a huge deal. And I would guess just Tejano music in general, going to college in Austin, meeting the other Latino kids of Texas, and you realized how much of a big deal Tejano music was. Or maybe we just weren't, us at Cathedral High School in El Paso just weren't listening to a lot of Tejano. We were listening probably more alternative rock, more.
Yeah, I was a rock guy.
LAQ, metal.
Yeah, I wasn't
too
up on Tejano.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's touch on the true crime part of it for a second. Selena's murdered in 1995 by a fan club manager, her fan club manager. She's shot in the back, I found in my notes, and the bullet happens to hit a very important artery, and she bleeds out. She's confronting the manager about stolen funds or something, and it's just sort of over and done with really, really quickly. And then currently, I think her name is Yolanda Saldivar, is currently in jail. Yeah, she's currently in jail, and it's over and done so quickly. The crime of it is really sad, and really there's almost a lack of drama to it. It's just crazy fan. She's the victim, and then we've lost the career of it. So my question is, though, with the true crime, she's convicted. It's pretty cut and dry, but it is kind of weird that she was going to go confront Selena about the embezzled funds or the missing funds. If I would I want nothing. I don't want this lady anywhere near Selena. We already know she's dirty. If this was in the movie, you would have questioned this. You'd be like, this doesn't make any sense as a movie, but since it's a true story, it really happened.
I think one thing you got to consider is that I think the movie takes great lengths to establish Selena as a very salt of the earth character. There's a scene where she's cutting her own grass with a lawnmower from the 50s. This woman's got a gold album, on her plate, and she's still using that Don Draper 1950s lawnmower. So I think there's a lot of like
that scene bothered me.
It's bizarre. She's cutting her own grass. They go to these like little hole in the wall restaurants to like have these chats and stuff. Granted, I'm basing this all off of the movie, but I think that Selena, whether this is true or not, the film gets this across. Selena handled her own business really well. So this is kind of a celebrity pre six assistants, pre ordering everything delivered to you, get the McFlurry delivered to your house. Like I think Selena hit people up on the phone and went to visit them. And that's what made her so likable as a person, was the fact that she felt like you could have grown up next to her, So I think that at the end, her downfall had a little bit to do with that lack of understanding of how known she was by people, and then how dangerous it was to be a celebrity in that time before you knew that you needed that kind of security and stuff. So I could see it happening. And I think that her death probably weighed a lot on her dad, because he probably felt really bad about letting her still go and visit this woman that he knew was doing so many bad things or was clearly up to something. But I think her death kind of plays into the ultimate tragedy of it, where she did handle things herself and she did want to meet with fans and she wanted to be very ground level on things. And unfortunately, she drove to that motel and Yolanda shot her. Sad stuff, right? One more thing I was wondering about too was, do we have any info on how that murder went down?
There's a few things I found online.
What do we know? Yeah.
They confront her. She goes to, this is the weird one I found. We know the crime as Yolanda comes to Selena's motel room. The gun comes out and she is shot. Selena freaks out, tries to run out of the room. And that's where she gets shot in the back. She runs down the hall. The manager sees her. The manager sees blood, calls the cops. EMS takes her. And then we have I think a 6-hour standoff with Yolanda in her truck. And the stink of it is they get her to confess to the murder through the negotiator. And that was a big detail for the prosecution. However, they fought it because it was given under duress. That's what I found from my research. The weird thing I found, tell me if you found this, is Selena confronts Yolanda, and Yolanda gives her a sob story how she had been attacked and raped a few days prior. And Selena, being this nice person, says, let's go to the hospital. Let's get you checked out. And they find nothing of any attack, rape, bruises, anything at the hospital. And they go back to the motel room, and then that's where it happens. I only saw that in a few articles. I can't fully confirm that, but I had never heard that detail before.
So what is the connection between Yolanda and Selena's family? Did they just find this woman like on the job boards? They needed somebody to run you know what I mean?
Craigslist?
Like, come on, like they needed somebody to run the fan club, so they put out an ad on like early 90s Craigslist or something like that. Because I struggle to understand. She's surrounded by so many good people who have her best interest in mind. I guess it just stuns me a little bit that like a Yolanda can make it through the cracks. I don't know Yolanda's origin story for Selena. It's bizarre to me that someone that bad gets that close to Selena. And then the other thing that kind of blows me away a little bit is what Pat just said about her getting shot in the back. It almost makes me wonder, based off of the movie, if Yolanda pulled the gun almost in a way to say, I'm so sorry, I failed you, I think I'm going to kill myself. And then Selena, in her moment of fear, might just be like, whoa, 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 runs out. And then it almost seems reactionary that Yolanda would just shoot her like in the back as she's leaving. I haven't read any testimony from Yolanda, but I would love to know how that motel room shootout went down, because it's very vague in the movie and it seems very vague in real life too. I'm not sure how it happened. We only have one witness. We only have Yolanda.
Yolanda claims that the gun went off. And in the crime doc I saw, they had a gun expert that says guns don't go off. It takes 11 pounds of pressure to pull a trigger. So her defense is really, really flimsy. And I watched there's a few interviews with like 2020 of her in the jail. And Yolanda is almost like really teasingly combative. They're like, what happened in that hotel room? I don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
Did you kill Selena? I don't want to talk about it. Like, she's almost like playful with it, which just lends me to think more that she is crazy. She's just off her hinges. And this is a crazed fan who killed her idol potentially.
Yes.
So the case doesn't seem to have that much nuance to it. Go ahead, Chris.
I know Andrew worked in the entertainment industry for a little while there. And Andrew, did you ever come in contact with any fans that just kind of took it a little too far? Because and how did that relate to, how did you vet people in order to work so closely with the talent?
Yes.
Where the situations like this wouldn't necessarily happen.
There's a lot to be said about first impressions, and it's very much a popularity contest where if people give you the wrong vibe, it's high school. It's no different than the high school cafeteria. Someone sits down at the table and gives you the creeps, everybody leaves that table, So if Yolanda is kind of fitting into this high school analogy, that's kind of what stuns me a lot, is that I can't believe, especially Abraham, Selena's dad, being as savvy a businessman as he is and having his past trauma as a discriminated Mexican American, I can't believe he would let this slide, other than the possibility that he might have given Yolanda a little bit too much of a free pass because of her Mexican American roots. I feel like he might have been blinded by that a little bit, because it's a little shocking to me. Again, all of my evidence is based off of a movie starring Jennifer Lopez right now.
It's good enough for me.
Works for me. Yolanda is weird from the beginning, and Yolanda doesn't come off as a genuine, nice person. And Yolanda is one of the only very old people working for Selena at that time. There's lots of Selena-age people as part of her entourage. It just makes me wonder how this mid-50s woman just got into the mix. So I would love to know how they hired her, how they got there in there. The other thing I'm very interested in is Patrick earlier said that it takes 11 pounds of pressure to pull a trigger, which is true. However, if the gun is already cocked, it's a hair trigger. So I wonder if Yolanda already had the piece cocked when she pulled it out of her hand, because then I might be able to understand how that could go off a little unexpectedly. So there's a lot of facts up in the air that we don't know. I don't know if police are capable of knowing whether the gun was already cocked or not when they shot it, but I would love to know those tiny little details, because did Selena stumble out of the motel? Was there a trail of blood? Did she fall dead on the spot? It's all very vague, and it's unfortunate that we only get Yolanda's perspective. So I would love to know more about this case. It's almost like a pre-security camera vibe too, so I think we might not know enough to make judgments on this, but I find it very creepy and kind of very fitting of like the time where, like, sure, John Lennon had already been shot by a crazy fan and stuff like that. But I just find it pre-security of celebrities and pre-worry about like what kind of crazy fans could do. So it's heartbreaking because there's a naivety to it that is just hard to deal with. It bums me out.
Truly, the saddest part of the whole movie, everything is like, this is a life interrupted. We don't know where the talent would have went. The obvious, like the movie tackles it a little bit. Obvious comparisons are Gloria Estefan, Madonna. This was a big talent that really could have went anywhere, and they were at the beginning of it. Let's talk actors in the movie before we do the categories. Two main ones, really. J-Lo. This is J-Lo's movie. This is 1997. J-Lo is coming off of, we didn't know her too well. She's coming off of Money Train, 1995, Jack, 1996, Blood and Wine, 1996, then Selena. And then, ironically, right after Selena, she does Anaconda, which is kind of a favorite movie, depending on who you ask. But this is her.
Ice Cube's in that one.
This is her, like, when you get drafted by the number one team in the NFL and you take the picture with the owner and stuff with the number one jersey. This is her draft day movie. And I don't think this movie works without her. She holds this movie through the whole thing. I don't think it works. In my research, the part was offered to Selma Hayek. She turned it down, and then they went with J-Lo. Abraham Quintanilla is involved in the casting. He finds an actress he likes in Los Angeles, and he wants her until he sees Jennifer Lopez. So she's the one that makes it all work. She's very unknown at the time. How much did you know of J-Lo before Selena, Chris?
I understand she was a dancer on the show In Living Color.
That's right. Yeah, we knew her from that.
I had I was a big fan of that show, you know, Homie the Clown and all that. There was so she was in that movie Jack with Robin Williams. I recall seeing that one.
Kind of a weird movie, yeah.
Oh, that's a creepy movie.
It was a weird one. It was a weird one, but you know, I think she was a good. I think she was like very middle of the road. It wasn't really showing off her acting chops. I didn't quite see Money Train, but
you didn't see Money Train?
I think
you gotta see Money Train.
I never saw Money Train. Hey, during that time, I was indie films all day, every day. That was
it was beneath you.
Kevin Smith. Yeah, that's when I started. I was in college, you know. Yeah. And I was in Austin. That whole indie movie scene was huge there. And then me and my brother Gil was living in Austin at the time. So we were active members in that whole scene, or at least we thought we were at that time. But yeah, so mainstream movies, I don't know. I was really into, there was the Dolby Theater in Austin that they would show a lot of the indies at. So that's where we were catching a lot of the movies. But
wait, so
I think Selena showed off J-Lo's dancing and acting. I think between her and
you're right. It's a perfect vehicle for J-Lo. Singing, dancing, acting.
I mean, Chris, I'm just fascinated.
Triple threat.
I'm just fascinated by this, Chris. Like, you're describing to me. So you said, like, you can't, like, you're living in Austin in the mid 90s, and you said you can't be caught dead watching a movie like Running Train. You know, like Money Train is not going to work for you. You
get
know,
into
like,
more of the Chris movie snob.
Yeah. So with that in mind, Chris,
let me preface this.
Go ahead, take it away. Yeah, take it away.
Only talk for 27 minutes about this.
I had good buddies that were managers at the General Cinemas, so we would go watch the mainstream movies there. They'd let us in. It was all free. So I would go see the movies. But, you know, what was it something I was living for? No.
Right. This is, I mean, there's a lot of...
It's understandable. I get it.
Film school is a very pretentious zone, you know? So, like, you've got to reference movies that 13 people saw in the 70s to, like, get some coinage, you know? So it's cool to me that Selena, a very successful mainstream movie, was able to kick its way into like that Austin film scene. You know, were people talking about that like as a good movie? Like, how did that fit into kind of the PTAs, you know, and the Wes Andersons? Like, how does Selena fit into like your like categories of movies like during that time? Would you be embarrassed if someone saw you watching Selena?
That's the better question. If your film snobby buddy said, Chris, you saw Selena? What's your response?
Well, it wouldn't have been like that, because like on top of that, me and Gil were really into what was happening in the Latino film industry.
Yes.
Also.
Oh, so you got props for that.
Gil and myself had started this, I think it was like a newsletter called Menso Media at the time, which was like this monthly update of like what's big in Latino media. And we started that like in 98. And we had even gone to this conference, this Alma conference, or Lemmy or Alma conference in LA around that time too, where we were hobnobbing with all the big Latino actors of the day.
Hold on a second. What does hobnobbing mean?
It was just like a convention they had. They had this convention out in LA, and it was like all the Latino filmmakers of the country would like all meet up annually. So me and Gil were all, hey, like Gil came up with this idea, and he was like, oh yeah, let's go check this out. He was in film school, he was in law school at the time. So he was always trying to angle like something that he wanted to do kind of like with his law career. And I think he was trying to get into entertainment law. So anyways, we went to this thing. So we met like a lot of the producers of Selena at this like conference. But that's when I was interning for Rick Linklater in
Yes.
Austin. So it helped that like I was working for an indie film director. I was interning for him, but it opens doors in LA when you can say I'm associated with this director, I'm associated with this
Yes.
producer,
I'm going to be honest with you,
rather
Chris.
than
I really think that Selena brings some art house chops to the table. You
The
know,
movie
as a
or
movie,
Selena?
the movie Selena, I find it to be incredibly abstract sometimes,
Really?
especially I mean, here, this is my
Hold on,
scene
save
where
this for Make the Case. That's a good one.
this is a movie that if you watch other biopics, they're very cut and dry. You know, you're dealing with beginning, middle, and end. You know, they got the wig on, they got the mustache, like they look just like a, you know. But with Selena, I find the editing to be really strangely artistic, especially the scene where she's performing in the amphitheater and a single rose flies out to the stage that she's unable to catch. Like we're dealing with like some French cinema right here, you know? And like the way that we tie this with a hard transition to like news media footage of like a stretcher being taken out of the motel. As a 6-year-old, I thought I was watching literally a video recording of someone's death. So I did not understand it as a 6-year-old. But now that I watched it recently, I think there's a little bit of abstract chops going down here. And I want to give a shout out to the director for making that leap, because the movie,
Gregory Nava.
it's very good. Yeah, I know it's mainstream and it appeals to all kinds of demographics, but I do think that there's an artistry that conveys itself in a pretty effective way. So that's why I was so fascinated by your experience as like a art film student, like in Texas in the 90s, because I would love to know how Selena was digested by like film students at that time, you know?
I was a history student. I wasn't a film student. I longed to be a film student.
Beautiful.
Gil and Liz did not co-sign on Chris Cordova going to film school at any
Really?
point.
Your parents didn't co-sign on you going to film?
But
you didn't tell them, hey, everybody's going to be writing on notebooks one day, right? Well, guess what? Those notebooks need covers. Who's going to put Better Off Dead on their notebook covers? Oh, CC right here.
Riz.
What about?
I want to say Gregory Nava is a great director, though.
Yes.
He's a great director.
I never heard of him before.
Yeah,
this was really good. It's a good offering of his.
Oh, yeah, he was great. El Norte, I think, is like in the...
El Norte is the only movie I heard that he directed that I knew of. And I can't say I've really seen it.
What about... Yeah, he had some really good other films, but I would say there's aspects, but then there's some, you know, not so great parts that are a little cheesier. But I think the cheesier moments of Selena kind of make it a little bit more heartfelt, you know?
Yes.
It kind of like gives you those insights. But if you want to talk acting and who was in the movie, I think Edward James Olmos he should have been nominated.
I got him next on my list. We got to take.
He should have been nominated.
EJO.
Those glasses alone. When my brother became a father, I suggested that he start wearing some Abraham Quintanilla glasses on the reg, just so he can.
Before we go, Edward James Olmos, tell me your favorite Jennifer Lopez movie.
You know, at that time, Out of Sight.
I think that's mine too.
For Out of Sight.
I rewatched, you know, Selena, and I watched Out of Sight. I almost like to think that this is Selena in Out of Sight. This is fully realized Selena. Now she's an FBI agent, and she's romancing George Clooney.
She's tough.
Out of Sight for you too?
Yeah, you know, I think.
I gotta go ahead.
But you know, I heard the
Anaconda,
the one
Made in Manhattan.
I heard she was really good in that most recent movie about the Players Club or the Hustlers Club, something like that.
You know,
Hustlers.
My favorite.
I heard she's really good in that. I haven't seen it.
Have you seen the movie Enough?
Oh, I give second place to Enough. I
That's
like that
an-
movie.
That's
a good
probably
J-Lo
my
movie.
favorite J-Lo
Was
movie.
that where she becomes like a fighter?
Yeah.
She becomes like an MMA fighter and beats up her
She
ex-husband.
basically learns like Krav Maga and like kills her abusive ex-husband. And it's just a great like setup where he's a dick from the beginning. And then they have a daughter together, and then he starts abusing her. And then she kind of sets a trap where he comes home and she makes it seem like he pulled a gun on her first, but she ends up killing him totally like within her rights. And it's just like, I almost wish that like it's cathartic for me, because like I imagine it as Selena performing like those like karate moves or whatever. And I just like, it makes me feel better thinking that like she's getting hers, you know, like she's beating up the Yolanda like in another movie or whatever.
Oh, that's good.
It feels good. It really feels good.
Stretch, bro.
It's good to see J-Lo win, because I feel so bad. And Selena, it's just like her career is like on the rise, and then it just cuts to her being dead on a stretcher. And it was hard for me to deal with. I really didn't like it. So when I got to see Enough, like I think that movie probably came out like 7 years later or something like that. It felt good to see J-Lo beating someone up and coming out on top. So
I'm in
that's
agreement.
my favorite.
Yeah, Out of Sight, close second, Enough. You
Enough is
different,
good.
Chris, or do you like those two?
You know, I would just say we would be nowhere if we didn't bring up Jersey Girl. And I think that was like
Jersey
where the
Girl.
Kevin
Yes.
Smith era
Might have
went
been-
downhill.
Might have been at the
It all went
plateau and on the
downhill.
way
That's-
down career with Jersey Girl.
And that's where
Might have been her
Ben
7 and
Affleck-
9 season.
Yeah, like that was, yeah, not
Well, let's-
not her finest moment. But you also have to say, if it wasn't for the movie Selena, J-Lo would have never become the singer as we know her
Right.
today,
I have
a
that
pop
in
artist
alternate
also.
universe. Right. Without
Yes.
Selena, what happens to J-Lo? Let's have the Edward James Olmos conversation. He is coming off of, let's see, he's coming off of the movie Death in Granada. Never heard of it. The Crystal Skull. Never heard of it. Disturbing the Peace. Never saw it. Then Selena, and then Hollywood Confidential after that. I was talking to Andrew about this. Selena is such a tour de force by J-Lo. If Selena the movie is 2004 LA Lakers, Edward James Olmos is Derek Fisher in this movie. He's a point guard. He's
Nah.
facilitating.
Damn.
He's keeping the offense running. No, make the case, Chris. What is he?
I think that's
Don't give
a
me no Spurs
disservice.
reference.
You know, I thank you.
Disservice.
I would say he's more of the Tim Duncan.
Oh,
He was
Oh,
already.
I knew you were going to bring up the
He's more the
Spurs.
Tim Duncan because he was like the mainstay. You know, he was going to be the J-Lo before this movie came out. You didn't know if J-Lo was going to knock it out of the park. She did, but Edward James Olmos. Okay, Edward James Olmos was in Zoot Suit. If you guys have not seen Zoot Suit, it's fantastic. He was also in Stand and Deliver.
oh,
American Me is
Come
another
on.
big one
so
of his.
good.
Come
Stand
on.
and Deliver is
What
required
kind of
watching.
Mexicans are you guys if you don't know no Stand and Deliver?
I saw Stand
When
and
he was-
I
Deliver.
love Stand and Deliver. We watched
Changed my
that.
life. Is what
Call me
Stand
out on
and
my own
Deliver
Zoom.
did.
Yeah, that was like playing on loop at Cathedral.
Of course, thank you. Then he was like on Miami Vice as the like lieutenant to Crockett and Tubbs. You know, he had a great 80s. Like Edward James Olmos, then like American Me. American Me came out like in the 90s, and that one was like, damn. We saw that one. I saw that one in the theater with my dad, and that was just like that was it. That was not an easy movie to watch, but you were
American
like,
Me, 1992. You saw in the theater with your dad, huh?
yeah.
Did that
Yeah.
affect your relationship with your dad?
No, we're tough, dude. We were like, oh yeah. Come on, we saw that over at Bassett Theater, dude.
Chris and his
Big
dad
Kill?
go see
Dude,
American
we
Me.
came out kind of walking a little like tougher out of
Oh,
that
very
movie.
nice.
It was kind of like
Wait, so
we
Chris,
went
let
through
me
the
let me hold you down to this San Antonio Spurs analogy. So you're saying that Abraham Quintanilla is your Tim Duncan right now. So
no.
Who's Selena
Edward
in your
James Olmos.
Spurs?
I'm sorry. Edward James
Edward James almost
playing
playing
Abraham Quintanilla. Okay. So
Because you knew
what
what you
Spurs
knew.
team are we working with?
What do you mean? Like
Are
what
we
year?
is he still playing with the Admiral? Is he what's
No,
our
'cause that
lineup?
would have been like the 99 season.
Okay.
98, 99 season. Or I'm talking like the later Spurs, like the 2014 team.
Got you.
Where you just knew Kawhi was the new star. Kawhi could have been the J-Lo because Kawhi was the new star coming up.
That makes more sense.
Can
The
you
assassin killer.
break it down? Yeah, break it down.
But you already knew Tim was going to be down at the post doing Tim Duncan. And I think that's where Edward James Olmos was going to be Edward James Olmos, dude. You knew
also,
he was going to bring it and bring it strong.
You need that player on the basketball court that when there's a 20-second timeout does the bring it in. Everybody bring it in on me. You need the anchor, and that's Edward James Olmos in this movie. He's like, bring it in, bring it in.
That's Tim Duncan in San Antonio, dude.
What about AB? Who's AB in your San Antonio Spurs analogy?
AB, I would say.
Is he on the court? AB, is he a coach? Where do you put AB?
AB is like a strong, I would say he was like Curry in the 2005 era San Antonio Spurs, where he was coming up and just not Curry. What's his name? The coach of Golden State right now when he played for the Spurs.
Steve Kerr.
Or maybe like your big shot Bob.
That's right.
Robert Horry.
Bob Horry or something.
Absolutely. So you like AB is in the clutch, I think, to make a shot.
Yeah, totally. Because AB then, after the Selena fame, he went on to Cumbia Kings, where Cumbia Kings had they never got to the Selena era of being big, but they were pretty big. But they always, I think they made the parrot call, the caca, 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 and they threw that like in the cumbia songs.
I'm isolating your parrot call for the intro.
If you're at a Latino party, yeah. If you know stuff's going to get lit when you hear that parrot call at a Latino party and some cumbias are playing, and we owe that to AB Quintanilla.
I like how you took the AB character and went third dimensional with it. You went AB is this in Selena, like Steve Kerr on the Spurs, but then afterwards, Steve Kerr coaches the Golden State Warriors, and AB produces more records.
They know more.
I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming. What about you, Andrew? AB on the Lakers.
So the way I'm gonna break it down is based off of body type. Like, it's impossible for me to assume that Abraham Quintanilla cannot be Shaq in this situation. You know, he's got Shaq. When he joined the Lakers, he had already had a little bit of a career under his belt. He had already played for the Magic. He had already gone through that experience as an NBA player. So he's very much entering a second phase of his career with the Lakers. And that feels very much like Abraham Quintanilla to me. All right. So that's your veteran talent, you know, maybe a little jaded, not sure how it's going to go. And then, of course, Selena's going to be your Kobe. Selena's untested. Selena's got, she's an upstart, you know, pretty cocky, you know, she's eating medium pizzas, not worried about anything. You know, she's got that attitude to her that would annoy a lot of older people, I feel like. So I'm putting Selena at Kobe. I'm putting Abraham Quintanilla at Shaq. Also, their relationship is a little tumultuous. They argue a little bit, you know, it fits. And I'm going to go ahead and put AB as Derek Fisher, because Derek Fisher is kind of the middleman. Like, Derek Fisher smooths things over. If you notice in the movie, Derek Fisher makes so much, or I'm sorry, AB makes so much happen for Selena. He's kind of like the one,
kind of the go-between.
Yeah,
he's like the peacemaker in a lot of scenes.
He's the assister. Right. He throws the ball where it needs to be, and it works out. So I like AB as your point guard. I was going to go AB as Ron Harper. Now you're talking me out of it. I think your analogy is better. I was going Ron Harper. Yes. And then, okay, so the lineup I'm working with is Derek Fisher, Shaq, Kobe, Robert Horry, Rick Fox. Okay. I think your Rick Fox character here is going to be Chris, because he's a little bit of a style hound. No, Chris Pettis, Selena's husband. Rick Fox is the pretty boy on the team. You know, Rick Fox can hit the threes, but he's also not going to drive the lane because he doesn't want to get bruised up. He's
also not in half the games.
Yes. So Rick Fox is pretty. Rick Fox is perfectly qualifiable as a basketball player, but he doesn't like to get too into the mix. So that's going to be my Chris. And then Robert Horry has got to be Suzanne. I think
Suzanne, dude. Suzanne's like the unsung hero of Suzanne family.
Big. I mean, Suzanne, bless her heart, she puts up with so much bullshit.
Suzette, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Suzette.
We don't even know her
drummer.
name. That's
the
a
other sister.
testament to how little attention she got. We don't even know her name.
But she hits all the big shots. You know, she does what she needs to do, and she's comfortable in her role. You know, and I think that like not enough credit goes to Suzette for being as cool as she is with just being pushed aside, you know, as another player. So also Robert already had some experience with the Rockets and stuff like that. So I feel like there's a little bit of an old soul in Suzette that comes out in the movie. And I think she fits Robert Horry. She's a great player. You know, she knocks him out when she needs to, and she's happy to take the back seat most of the time.
I don't think we're going to do any better than that lineup.
I think Suzette I would refer to as the Manu Ginobili, the sixth man that made a career, just made a career in San Antonio as the official sixth man, and played the role, showed up to work, put in the time, made some big plays when needed to. So yeah, Suzette to Manu, but I got to give a props to Suzette because I think she's the unsung hero of that family, man. Like she played a role. Like
not bad.
Abraham says, Suzette, you are going to now play the drums. And she's like, but she did it.
She did it. You're right.
She totally does.
She didn't
Can I offer
she was like
one more? Can I offer one more analogy potential? What about Selena's mom as Tex Winter, the assistant coach to Phil Jackson?
Good.
Tex Winter is drawing up the triangle offense. Doesn't get any credit. Selena's mom is gluing on the diamonds and the rhinestones to the bras and the bustiers. Tex Winter, Selena's mom. What about that? We got a full basketball team.
I would say the assistant coach, God, what is her name? Becky from the Spurs. She's like the assistant coach there. You know, she's just there. She's there. She puts in the time, you know, assisting Pop when needed, getting groomed for like the big scene. But
you always think in third dimension, Chris. I see your brain now. I see what you're going for. You're always thinking down the road.
It's like it's like Spurs culture and
Spurs
Selena
culture. That is not a term. Spurs culture.
I love Spurs culture.
Go to San Antonio. Go see all the Spurs logos on the back of trucks. And you will know what Spurs culture is about in Saytown. That's their only big franchise in San Antonio. It goes hard. It goes hard. And it's been their only big franchise for like the last 30 years, 40 years.
Works for me.
Shall we do the categories?
Do them.
Categories of the movie. First category. This is the oh shit moment of the movie. This is the most memorable. This is the moment you knew this movie was something. The nominees are opening Houston Astrodome scene, El Paso 1989 performance scene, or the Mexico City performance scene, or write in your nominee. Chris.
Wait,
shit moment.
Shit moment, I would say, is when Abraham has had enough and he's trying to kick Chris off the bus, and he said, you're never gonna be a singer. I'll disband the Dinos. That's the shit moment, because you're how much power does this guy have? Like, that's when Abraham really flexed his Darth Vader muscles and said, like, I control this. This is all mine. This is like a mafioso style move on his part. Like, I will shut this party down. We will all be poor. I don't care.
I will turn this car around moment, essentially.
Yeah. Like, you're getting off this bus. I think that was the moment for me. I think by the time she played the Houston Rodeo, which you guys aren't familiar with, but that's a big deal in itself. That's like Houston South by Southwest. That's huge. Like, that's huge, but she had already done that. I think the big scene in the Mexican concert where they're in Mexico and the person's about to get crushed and the stage is going to collapse. I think that was a big thing. I think that was a big moment. Like, man, she's huge in Mexico. Mexican-American artist in Mexico getting this kind of crowd, and like, stuff might go down. So yeah, I like both those moments.
So you kind of went with two moments. I went with my favorite oh shit moment scene is the Mexico City performance. Just because You've got the big crowd. And in speaking to the editing and the directing again, we've got big crowd. You can tell it's hot there. You can tell it's crowded. And they go from the bus 10 steps and to the stage. And that's it. And Selena's got the white jeans, the white top, and it's just fully realized Selena, fully realized J-Lo as Selena, right into the song, no talking. And so that's my, oh shit, this is a great movie scene. That's my nominee. Andrew, what do you got?
I got two of them. I guess so my favorite oh shit moment has to be the montage where she's playing and she's got all the outfits on.
And it love that montage.
I love the montage. Like, it's so good because like you're almost caught up in the wave of Selena mania, like the outfits are so differentiated and they're so unique, and like J-Lo's crushing it, and like I love a good montage. So when that happens, like it's kind of the fun and games part of the movie where like just the money's rolling in, like she's wearing bras on stage. Like Abraham's cool with it now, obviously, because he only cares about money. So like it all works out, so that's my favorite part. My secondary oh shit moment, and this is less popcorn joy and more like, whoa, this is about to be dark, is like I said earlier, when she's singing alone in the amphitheater and the single white rose flies at her and like she's unable to catch it. That really, like, even as a kid, I remember being like, this almost feels like a bad omen or like a nightmare, and like that hard cut with the death part, like, is another big oh shit moment for me, where it's like, this movie isn't all fun and games, like there's going to be some dark emotions revved up right now. So that's a credit to the director. It gives me both oh shit moments, happy oh shit, and then kind of sad, freaky oh shit.
It's kind of like a uphill battle for the movie and the director, because the audience knows how the story ends. There's not drama, essentially. We have to recreate a story and make it interesting. And we know the whole time how this all ends. So it speaks to editing and directing that this movie, again, works. Large credit to Jennifer Lopez.
Yes. If you want to compare it, go ahead, Chris, sorry.
I saw Selena this past summer in El Paso at this drive-in movie night that the El Paso film, I guess it was like their film group had put together. And the thing was sold out. But yeah, you knew how the movie was going to end, but you were still there for it. And you kind of wanted to go through that high drama and that ending in unison with your fellow El Pasoans in your vehicles, because it meant a lot to this community that we were a part of that movie. We were part of that movie.
Yeah.
Not like Corpus or not like San Antonio, both featured heavily, or Lake Jackson, but we were part of it. We're part of this Texas story.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Success.
We claim a little bit hometown success. So you went the scene where Abraham yells at Chris. I went Mexico City. You went montage. I think if you described any of those scenes to someone who hadn't seen the movie, I think those would be good representations. Let's go category. Oh, go ahead. If you have something else.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Let's go category number 2, alternate universe. This is one little detail change could change the course of this whole movie or world. Of course, the big one is, does Selena become a crossover hit? Can Selena become Madonna? And in my other alternate universe theory, Abraham becomes this ultimate businessman. Say Selena has this like great success, say she doesn't die, and Abraham owns a million sort of like shopping centers. He owns record labels. Alternate universe, Abraham Quintanilla becomes a record mogul.
I love that.
Yeah. What do you got for alternate universe, Chris? Mine is based off of that Selena, didn't die.
I think Tejano music, because I think Tejano music would have continued to flourish. I think
I like where this is going. Yeah.
I think Chris Bettis's career, Chris Bettis hasn't had the greatest career. Like, he's still kind of a regional act in the San Antonio, Rio Grande Valley, Corpus area. I I think he probably would have had a better career at this point. I do think that Abraham Quintanilla is, I don't think he's quite at the Jay-Z level, but I think in his own way, through the licensing of all things Selena, he has become a very profitable businessman over the years.
Yeah, I could see alternate universe Abraham Quintanilla invents something equivalent to the George Foreman grill. And then that becomes a large portion of his empire. I could totally see something like that. He seems like a savvy businessman that's open to making a profit.
Yeah. I could see an Abraham Quintanilla like chia pet or something like that, that he just like that hair grows right out. You know, I think that would work.
What
Chris,
do you got?
Go ahead.
Well, like so like I'm saying, I'm going to bring it back to Central Texas and how big Selena is there. When they licensed her image on these there's like a chain of convenience stores called Stripes throughout Texas. They put her image on some cups, on some coffee mugs, sold out. They put her image on some H-E-B bags, H-E-B, the big grocery store in Texas, sold out. Like you could not, these things were going on the internet. She had a line of cosmetics out, sold out. Like people were excited to have this thing. He's been very strategic about how he licensed her image. And then the Netflix series that came out, he's like the big writer producer, and that's like, it's called Selena Netflix series, but apparently that's all from the point of view of him, Abraham, and AB. Like it's kind of more their story with Selena as a character within it.
Mm-hmm. So maybe this alternate universe is actually happening.
I think in the era of Abraham, because then they have that big Selena festival that was going on in Corpus. And that was like this big thing. It would happen around this time, about the time of her birthday. Yeah. And that was a huge festival. And I think he was going to shut it down and move it to San Antonio, but the pandemic happened. So that didn't quite happen quite yet.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Andrew? Alternate universe.
Well, okay, so first of all, Chris, you've touched on a really interesting plot point or alternate narrative that I'd be fascinated to watch, and that would be AB's experience during all this time, because it's very clear that guy was on his own path and becoming a very successful act in his own right. So they make the hard cut from him being a normal guy to him wearing tinted shades with like gelled hair like in front of his forehead. So like he very much starts embodying like a very producery look, and it's like I want to know what's happening, you know, like what kind of parties is AB going to? Like he's very savvy, you know. So I found myself fascinated by AB's storyline. All right. The other thing is alternate universe. Okay, a little bit of a running start to this one. Abraham Quintanilla is a savvy businessman, and he thinks about things very big picture. Okay, so when he puts the band together when they're all children, he makes very savvy decisions. Like Selena, you're going to be the main act. Suzette, you're going to play the drums. What if they were both hot? That's what I wonder. If Suzette was hot. If Suzette was as hot as Selena, the question has to be asked. What would happen if Abraham Quintanilla had two hotties on his hands? Would it be like the Milli Vanilli of Tejano music? You know, like how would this work? You know, because
I think you hit on the head. Two singers.
It's two singers, and it's going to be much dancier. And I would just love to know the universe that Abraham Quintanilla would create if both of his daughters were very fine. You know. Because a thing there's a lot of body shaming in Selena, you know, and like a thing that movie doesn't touch on is the fact that Suzette gets thrown behind the drums because she's fat, you know.
So like the age of 6,
they got her wearing long sleeve turtlenecks in 99-degree weather with some overalls, you know, like that poor woman is definitely not cutting figures for their posters.
Selena had a bra and Suzette had like 3 vests.
And all credit to Suzette, like she rolls with it so well and she takes it for the team. But what would happen if you had two Selenas? What would Abraham do with that? Would he make 2 separate acts? Would he make them one act that kind of vibes off of each other? Would one play the guitar? Like, I find myself unsure of what he would have done, and almost relieved that it didn't work out that way, because he got to do a much more classical act where there's one Jim Morrison type. But I would like to see what he did with two big pieces of like really attractive talent, you know? So that's my big alternate universe. I'd love to know how that would play out.
That's pretty good.
Don't discount Selena had like this great singing voice at an early age. I don't think Suzette ever came across as the greatest singer at an early age, to the point that Selena did. So I think, that's where he started honing in on this talent. But he also he was a musical act himself in the 60s, where he was like a Latino act doing doo-wop. And so he kind of knew the score. He'd been like a savvy guy.
Abraham knew. You're right. He knew what was up. Yeah, that's why this is the ultimate alternate universe. He would have realized very early on, if I got two attractive daughters, one of them can't be playing drums.
Right.
There's always that big comparison with Joe Jackson. And then who was worse? I've heard a lot of people say Abraham Quintanilla was worse than Joe Jackson.
I think a good argument could be made for that.
I have that in my potential questions. Was Abraham Quintanilla a good dad or not?
Is there a little bit of sugarcoating going on with that first 20 minutes of that movie where he's casually trying to get them to practice? I feel like he might have done a little more yelling during that time, but who knows? Who knows?
Let's go to next category: favorite non-lead actor. For me, I'm eliminating Edward James Olmos as a nominee because he's in too much of the movie. For me, it's an easy one. I go AB. Not only because, he's solid in every scene, he's funny, he looks the part, but also, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Airborne, but AB, the actor, is also in that movie about rollerblading the mid-90s, which I may have to record solo at some point.
Jacob Vargas, I think's the actor's name.
Yes. Yeah. I go AB for my favorite non-lead actor.
I would have to go with the guy that said the cholos that roll up when the buses broke down.
Oh, good one.
Anything for Selena's, because you bring up Selena and your average guy response is always anything for Selena's with the S at the end. So I would say he was a brief character actor, but he made his presence known. So
that's pretty good. I like that one.
No disrespect to Jacob Vargas playing AB, but
Andrew, favorite non-lead?
Favorite non-lead for me, I think it's the mom. A couple reasons for that. The first reason is the mom undergoes the biggest character appearance shift of the movie, where she goes from having the very long black Selena hair to the short orange hair with glasses, so that even as a kid, that shocked me, like how she changed from like one look to the other. So that was always something that stood out to me, was like her progression in her looks department.
Yeah, she progressed the most in the movie.
Yes.
But Edward James Olmos is effectively 65 years old through this whole movie.
Yes.
From 1981 to 1995, he looks 65 years old.
There's
a decade and a half.
He's aged from the beginning almost. And the other thing I really like about Selena's mom is that there's a very subtle cue in the movie where they're having a hard afternoon and they go to the lake or something, or they go to the ocean, and Selena's mom shows Selena how to dance. And then that kind of unlocks their act, is that Selena's dancing is very rudimentary in the beginning of the movie. And then once Selena's mom shows her how to cumbia a little bit, like it cuts to like more success. So not enough credit is given to the mom for showing Selena how to unlock those hips, kind of. Granted, it's very creepy because she's like 6 years old, but at the same time, like that's what the act needed, was like dancing. It needed more movement, and Selena's mom gives that to Selena. So she's a very unsung hero in the movie because Abraham didn't figure that out, The
actress is Constance Marie, who later became known as the wife on the George Lopez show. Wow. And she was so
Nice.
good on the George Lopez show.
So good that we were wondering where she was from. We couldn't figure it out.
Is it the same actress through the whole Selena movie, or is there a young?
It's the same
Yeah.
one,
Same
I
one?
think. I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the
I
same
don't know.
one.
And they kind of had to like make her unattractive in the later
Right.
years.
Yes. Well,
But
I think they. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I dated a girl from San Antonio, and her mom had a very similar short orange haircut
It's
with the
classic.
big glasses, and I was like, damn, this is good. They got this look down well.
Yes.
To make Constance Marie transform her look, that's a very believable.
It is a look that exists in El Paso. People have a hard time understanding the sudden shift to short orange hair, but people do that in El Paso, and it happens, and it's unknown to me why people decide to do that. But the other reason I thought that they kind of made her a little more mom and a little less like attractive Hispanic woman is because they wanted to clear the stage for J-Lo Selena, you know? And if you notice, that mom is very, very attractive at the beginning of the movie. And I don't think it would have worked as well if the mom and Selena were both kind of owning the stage together. So I do think they purposely made the mom less attractive. That way it would bring Selena even more into relief as like this beautiful Hispanic rising star.
What about this? Selena's mom was late career David Robinson. Selena was Tim Duncan,
like that.
4th year in the NBA.
I like that. I think that's good. I think that's good.
I like it. I like because if Tim Duncan would not be who he turned out to be,
right? That's where Selena got her genes, and that's where Tim Duncan got basketball knowledge. Next category, I'm very excited for this one. Best line reading from the movie. I wrote a few down. I'm going to go with this one as my favorite line reading. Abraham Quintanilla, when he's first starting the band and he buys a bunch of equipment, and the wife goes, "What are you doing?" And he's got 3 guitars in his hand, and he goes, "Starting a band. You, me, the kids, rock and roll." That's my favorite line reading. Not listening to his wife in his own world. I'm starting a band with the family. Best line reading, Chris. What do you got?
That just brought an idea to my head. If Dr. Ramirez came home one day and your guys and Mrs. Ramirez was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing, Art?" And he said, "This family is going to start a band," referring to the Ramirez boys starting a rock band. But
which one would play the drums? Sorry, don't answer that.
Line reading, I'm going back because I love the awkward dynamic between Selena and Chris Perez after he trashes the hotel room and he's up on the roof. "Is that who you are? A big rock and roll star? I see you, the real you." I can't watch that without laughing.
You bring up a good point. All those scenes between Chris and Selena don't work unless J-Lo is as good as she is. Those are really, it's really awkward dialogue. Chris is kind of throwing 60 miles an hour and J-Lo's throwing 100 miles an hour, and she makes all these scenes work. And that one you mentioned is a good example of that. And I liked your line reading.
If it wasn't for that guy's like ponytail, I think they could have dressed up any guy in a ponytail with like a bad 80s rocker kind of look, Latino rocker look, or a rock en español look, and try to make that character work. I
agree. Andrew, best line reading.
Best line. I mean, there's a lot of great lines in there, and Abraham Quintanilla drops a lot of amazing lines. But I think my favorite line is when young Abraham Quintanilla and Los Dinos are going to audition at that like little surf shack or whatever, and the guy has no idea that they're Hispanic, and then they show up and he's like a little shocked, and then he runs inside and calls the owner, and he says like, "Yeah, they're Mexican, but I thought they were like Italian or something like that."
I wrote that down. Some of my favorite lines
It's
too.
not, I didn't deliver it perfectly, but basically he thinks they're Italian instead of Mexican, and that makes it like impossible for them to like hire them like as the house band or whatever. But just the fact that he thought they were Italian, like I just found that so funny and like fucked up. So I really enjoyed that line. That one gave me the lulls for sure.
I wrote down as favorite lines the one you said. I didn't know they were Mexican. I thought they were Italian. You, me, the kids, rock and roll. And then one last line. It's that Ronald Reagan. Como se dice Reaganomics. Those are my lines of the movie. My nominees.
If I could
Unless you
throw
have a
one more
write-in.
in, let me toss one more in.
Give us a
Another
write-in.
real funny moment for me was when Selena y Los Dinos finished performing at like some shitty Tex-Mex festival or whatever, and then they're leaving the stage or whatever, and they didn't have a great show, and Abraham Quintanilla is telling AB that he kind of dropped the ball and he didn't hold the rhythm or whatever, and then they start arguing with each other, and then AB says to Abraham like, well, it's because I don't like the songs basically, and then Abraham says to his 11-year-old son, if you want to write the songs, be my guest. I just thought that was so good. Like their relationship begins at that point as an adult relationship.
Hey, maybe also was foreshadowing that AB
does write the songs,
is on his way to producing records.
There
We get more into that in the.
I do like that line.
Series.
The fan fiction that could happen from that moment, or the alternate story, is so good because at that point, Abraham is no longer talking to an 11-year-old. He's talking to a full-blown adult in the music industry, where he's essentially saying to his dad, your songs suck. Like, I don't like your songs. And then he says, well, then you write the song. So I love that scene, and it's very funny, and it's great for AB and Abraham. It's a good relationship.
Throw in for me when he comes right off stage, the mom hugs the two girls, and Abraham goes to AB, hey, man, you got to pick it up, man.
He says you lost him. He says Tejanos like to dance.
Hey,
So
Pat,
good.
one last one is when he's explaining how we're Mexican-American, you have to be more American, and then like, or you got to be more American, the Americans, and more Mexican than the Mexicans. It's exhausting.
So
I should have
good.
had that one there. That was good. When he's doing his ultimate dad rant in the van, talking about Mexican Americans. That's a good one. I should have added that line.
I think Abraham Quintanilla carries all this exhaustion with him in every scene, and that's like what I think.
Do you think that was the director note for Edward James Olmos? Like, let me tell you, you're the father and you are exhausted. Go.
You were like 24/7 exhausted and mad.
Put on these glasses. Next category, recast it. I mentioned that Selma Hayek was originally slated for the role. If I were to recast this role and I'm recasting Abraham, there's only a couple names that come up for Abraham. And to me, it's Jimmy Smits and Lou Diamond Phillips are the only other considerations to play Abraham. Selma Hayek, of course, could have played Selena in another universe. And my last one is swap out my favorite actor, Vargas, for AB, put in Michael Pena. Those were my recasteds. Do you have anybody you want to recast in the movie?
I like Michael Pena as AB Quintanilla. Dude, that goes really hard.
Yes.
Because I was
Michael
kind of
Pena,
thinking,
king of good acting, bad movies. He's good
he's
in
good in
everything.
Narcos Mexico.
He's so good in
Agreed.
Narcos.
Home run,
So
home run
good.
that whole time. I think if
Yes.
you were to redo the movie now, I think Pena has the chops to pull off Abraham Quintanilla.
Yeah.
If you're
Cast him
remaking right
now
now?
as Abraham. That's a good one.
Yeah. J-Lo. Okay. Selena, I'm just talking 1997 at the time. Yeah, your big actresses, your big Latina actresses of the era were like Rosie Perez.
Rosie Perez could not have played Selena.
Elizabeth Pena. She
Who's
was like
that?
she was in La Bamba. She played Bob's wife in La Bamba.
Okay.
And it was just, you didn't have, I think the thing for this movie, you needed a big name. And I think at that time, the two biggest names were Salma Hayek and Jennifer Lopez. That too. And I bet you J-Lo won out because she could sing. And she had that like singing presence and she could dance. She's more of a performer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Did you know that movie, that show Cristela, that one comic Cristela?
Yes.
I think she could have been like a good Suzette.
Yes.
That'd be good. What if we did the comedy version of Selena. We do a dark comedy, and we got George Lopez as Abraham Quintanilla. You think
My
that
heart
works in
just
an alternate
exploded.
universe?
Yes, that would be an excellent pick.
You want to take a 5-minute break, Chris?
I think that would have been amazing. And especially because if George Lopez had to go serious, like, and I think he would have loved the opportunity
Mhm.
to be like this dark character, and that would have given him this like bigger presence in
my God.
casting, and not been so pigeonholed as like the funny Mexican guy doing the voice of Chihuahuas in movies.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think for recast it, Andrew?
Okay. Okay. So for Abraham Quintanilla, I would be fast. I love when actors get the chance to flex their chops a little bit. And I would be fascinated to see what a James Gandolfini could do with Abraham Quintanilla. I think he's got the body type. He's got the style. I would like to see him exercise his Hispanic roots to like really get that one across. So I'd love to see that. And then here's my hot take on Suzette. I would like to see Adele play Suzette. I think you could get an amazing performance out of Adele. And I also think that it would give Suzette the credit she deserves. You know, Suzette is a musical talent as well. Like, no one gives her enough credit for how quickly she picks up Tejano drums and never drops the beat. She's so good. So her talent is kind of overshadowed by Selena's sexiness and good ability to sing. But Suzette is a good rhythm keeper, even better than an AB. AB sucks. And Abraham never calls out Suzette for being a bad drummer. She calls out AB for being a bad bass player. So I love how Suzette just takes off like a rocket and gets really good at Tejano drums. Granted, she's got a backup drummer too that also plays, but I think Adele could do justice to like a more robust Suzette character.
I just looked up James Gandolfini's 1995 Crimson Tide, Get Shorty, The Juror, and all the way into, those are about his main ones. So a 1995 Crimson Tide James Gandolfini could be there. He could totally be there.
That could be good. Yeah, it could work.
I like that. I like that recasting. Next category. What did you love, hate, or forget about in this movie? For me, I forgot this movie was 2 hours and 7 minutes long. This is a long movie. They take on a lot. That's all I had for that. I forgot this movie was so long. What about you, Chris?
Since this movie came out in 97 and now I have visited the area of Lake Jackson where they go and start and I've had a lot of friends from Lake Jackson, and pretty much Lake Jackson, Texas is one community that's built around the Dow Chemical Company. Like that's all that's there. And it's all,
is that where the dad worked?
Yeah,
I wasn't sure about that.
He worked at a refinery.
He worked at a chemical company before he quits to start the band.
And one of my friends has a beach house at Surfside, which is right next to it. That's where I got immersed in it. So that was something like I forgot how big of a deal that was. But also since then, knowing how Lupe Ontiveros, who plays Yolanda.
Oh yeah, we haven't
Paso.
Recasted Yolanda.
Yes. Yeah.
I did find that actress is from our hometown. You're right.
And apparently she grew up in Segundo, or like she went to El Paso High.
Which Are you also serious?
Yeah, also produced El Paso High. Also produced F. Murray Abraham, who was an Oscar nominated in Amadeus, and he was in Scarface too, and a slew of others. But Lupe, yeah, hometown pride of El Paso right there. And I think she kind of grew and grew and grew as an actress. And she, apparently she played a lot of maids over the years, but we would be hard pressed if we did this podcast without giving some props out to Lupe.
Okay, Chris, I'm blown away by that because when we were watching the movie, we had no idea she was from El Paso, and all of us were stricken by like how El Paso she was. We were like, my mom said, like, I've met this woman like 10 times. Like, this is a type of person that works at a dentist's office, like she has that vibe. Like I've seen her in high school situations. Like that woman is almost like a archetype, like for an El Paso person,
she probably grew up around the neighborhood where your guys' grandparents had their grocery store. I'm saying
Yes.
that's around like that's the type.
Valverde. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Who should play her if we recast it?
I honestly, like, one of my aunts could play her. You know, like, it would be a perfect fit. Like, she's such a person that I've seen so much in El Paso. So I would put my aunt in there.
What aunt of mine you put in the role of Yolanda? I'd watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
For me, worst parts or like most like whatever parts, I guess. Let me think. I find Selena and Chris's relationship a little lopsided. So I think like I struggle with Chris because he almost strikes me as like he's twitchy. Like there's like almost like it's almost as like his take on the character doesn't work for me. You know, Selena's doing all the heavy lifting. She's going 90 and it's like Chris is going 10. And I think just as an actor, he doesn't have like he doesn't do it right for me. So it almost feels like a big sister, little brother relationship that I would like it if it was a little more balanced. So
it's almost if we had a better actor in that role, this movie goes from an A to an A+.
Yes.
You know, like we talked about in the wrong hands, this Selena movie isn't very good. But in the right hands, if we had a better Chris, it could have made the love story a little bit more compelling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe if you had like some kind of grunge artist of the time or something like that, someone that was a very believable musician.
Yeah, who was a musician at the time that also could be in a movie? That could work. Say we had a real musician playing a role. Maybe that was a route to go. Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not sure. You know, there were some musicians around that time in Austin, like Vallejo, who were like Latin rock, who could probably have done something or done something just as good. But
that was odd.
I think a stronger actor in that situation would have been good.
Absolutely, I agree. He left a lot to be desired in some of those scenes, and I just felt like I don't know, like it was almost like they were trying to go for that whole Slash Guns N' Roses look with him a little bit, and it just didn't totally land for me. I wish they would have done a little bit more of like a nuanced take on Chris Perez, because he came off as very two-dimensional, and almost a little like just like goofy. Like the whole part where he takes out his like Cholula sauce from the holster, like it's cute, I like it, but like I can't. The only thing I get from that is like Selena finds him like cute or amusing or whatever. I would have liked if there was a little bit more from Chris, especially when Selena dies. Like I would have loved if Chris got to like share an emotion after she died, or like I would have loved a scene between Abraham and Chris after the death where like they talk in the hospital or like they have some type of connection. Like this is kind of getting off topic, but like the movie does drop you cold after Selena dies, and there's no closure at all. Like it literally gives you the in memoriam text with like 19 whatever to 1995 like credits, you know? So I would have loved more from Chris as an actor in that moment. And no fault of the actors, but like the script does let me down with his character a little bit. So I would have liked more from him.
I agree.
Think about maybe a Dave Navarro type.
Yes.
How old was Dave Navarro in 97?
That would have been
he was like in the Chili Peppers at 97. He played
that would have worked.
Think he could have pulled it off?
Song.
Maybe
it would have been cool to have more of a genuine rock star.
Yes. I was gonna say Chris. I was gonna say Chris Cornell. I would have loved.
Chris Cornell would have been
Chris
the pick.
Cornell's got the hair, you know. Like I would have liked to have seen how he pulled that off.
I'm all in on Cornell.
Honestly, why not get Slash to do it? I would have loved.
I don't think Slash can act. I don't think he can act.
Maybe not.
I like your Cornell idea.
Cornell could work. I would like to see a real rocker be in there. You know,
Dave Navarro still was like a legit rock star, Latino roots. He could have pulled it off. I bet you anything. And then, like, I think he would have had a better chemistry with J-Lo at the time.
For sure. There's very little chemistry between Chris and
J-Lo does
Selena.
all the heavy lifting in all their scenes. I agree with that. The Cornell is the money in the bank idea, if that could have worked. Final category. Winners and losers of the movie. I have, first of all, I got winner, Tejano music. I got winner, women's fashionable hats. I got loser, Abraham shirts throughout the whole movie. And I got like, as a loser, like, I don't know what, like the audience, the story, there's something to do. The ending, it just ends and we are completely sad. We see the real photos and performances of Selena, and then it's credits, and then Over the Rainbow is playing, or Somewhere Over the Rainbow is playing. You don't walk out of that theater if anywhere but sad walking out of there. So I got that part, but special shout out to Abraham shirts throughout this whole movie. Ultimate dad shirts. He had the button down, he had the patterns, he had the mid button where it kind of makes a V-neck. Abraham shirts get a winner for me. Winners and losers. What do you think?
Winner. I'm going to go a little heavy on you guys, but winner are pochos. Mexican Americans that don't know Spanish very well. This was like the time to say,
good one.
All right, we're not bad people. We just don't know Spanish very well.
Yeah.
I think I heard this podcast, this Anything for Selena's podcast, made by an El Pasoan, Maria Garcia, and she goes over this whole thing of like, if you're Mexican American in Texas and the Southwest, it's assumed that you know Spanish, both by your race and by like white people. And it's kind of like a letdown when you tell people you don't know Spanish very well. And but anyways, Pochos, big win. J-Lo had a big win. Edward James almost big win. Losers coming out of this. Chris Perez, I don't think he could have had he tried having like a huge career, didn't end up happening. But I think Latinos, Mexican American voices in mainstream representation, huge win, because the more this movie grows and gets bigger, the more visibility there is, the more just kind of understanding of Texans as well, Mexican Americans and Texans in Texas, and the whole Tejano culture. And that's just like Mexican Americans that grew up in Central and Texas have been there forever. And that is their story, you know, and it's represented in music and food and like all that. They try to put it in this movie as much as possible. And I think Gregory Nava had a huge win because he was able to do some more mainstream movies after this. I think he did that one Selma Hayek movie, like Fools Rush In, and some other things. But I think he had like a good run as a Hollywood director for a while.
That's good.
Any losers of the movie, or all winners to you?
No, I'd say Chris Perez.
Oh, Chris, you gave Chris a loser. That's right.
But I would say Selena, like just her memory, her icon statusness to this time in 2021, like she's huge still. And you know, I think that's only been like a good thing, but I do think that's probably due to the work of Abraham Quintanilla. I would say Abraham Quintanilla as a person had the loss because everybody assumes he's this evil guy. Like we don't know him, we just know him through the movie. But Edward James almost played him in such a way where everybody just assumes he's this like evil character. Like and Yolanda, winners and loser.
Yeah, Yolanda.
We're stepping over the audience.
She's like it's Kukui and Yolanda as villains in Hispanic.
Ultimate. We need to do a power ranking.
You know,
ultimate.
It's very neck and neck.
Power ranking ultimate Hispanic villains. Yolanda, Kukui. We need a couple more mythological ones, but she's up there.
Yeah, she's almost got
like that took down Ricky Valens.
Yeah, put that one in there. That's good.
For me, winners and losers. Straight out the gate, the big loser for me is Papa Goyo's. That restaurant starts off well, and Reaganomics destroys it. That restaurant had no chance. And I love the way the movie ties in like a little 80s political stance where it would have been a perfectly successful restaurant had Reagan not been elected president, because that's what destroys the restaurant. And in a good way, makes Abraham Quintanilla start up the band in a more serious way. So I would say the loser is Papagoyos. If I was living in the town at that time, I would love to eat at Papagoyos and watch Selena y Los Dinos perform. Like, it seems like such a good restaurant. If you're looking for like vibes, El Paso Chucotown vibes, I would say it's got like a little Leo's feel, like nothing crazy, it's not like Carlos and Mickey's where you got the steps that take you to different rooms. Like, this is just a straight big room with a stage in front. And I was reminded of Leo's. So I think the loser is Papagoyos, but it ultimately leads to a good thing in the movie. So take it for what it's worth. Okay. And then the winner for me is the one and only, not Abraham Quintanilla as a person, but the dad vibes he gives off in this movie.
Win for dad vibes.
It's a big win for dad bod and dad vibes, because let's not forget the scene where he's rocking the tidy whities on that twin mattress and he climbs into that bed with a huge gut and just like, there's no shame at all. Like, I love the bravado of his dad bod in this movie. It's so attractive to me how little he cares, and his wife doesn't seem to care either. It's just a big win. So I love the dad vibes. It's a good example of like, father knows best, but at the same time, father's clearly fucked up too, and like has problems and is like living vicariously through his attractive children, which is really creepy.
Maybe this is a low-key dad movie.
Because
in the scene you mentioned, he says he's talking about starting a restaurant, and the wife is like, "You're not thinking about starting a restaurant, are you?" He's like, "No, I'll keep my job. We'll just, everybody loves, we can make some money. I'll keep my job." The very next scene, I quit my job. That was it. Didn't do any listening in the bed.
It does a lot for like the okay, like, I know this might sound crazy, but let's give it a shot. Like, it all works out for Abraham. So he's a big win in the movie, but more importantly, I feel like his vibe is like a dad is good. And then I like the nuance of like, he's got problems too, and like he's got anger issues and he blows up a lot. Like, it feels very realistic, his performance. It doesn't feel sugar-coated at all, even though it is, which is kind of scary. But I really enjoyed it. I thought he's a big win for what he did for, like, especially now that you've got like the Leo dad bod and like just that whole like, I'm overweight and owning it look. Like, you got to give Quintanilla the OG credit for kind of getting the ball rolling on that, Take a look at the other movies that were coming out during that time. You got Legends of the Fall, where you got Brad Pitt with like those six-pack abs. Like, I just really enjoyed Quintanilla's no holds barred take on the tidy whities and the twin mattress.
Maybe also good. Loser of the movie, Abraham Quintanilla's listening skills.
Yes.
He does little to no listening to the people in his family the whole movie.
Yes.
So I like it. I like it as a low-key dad movie, now that you mentioned that.
It's a good dad movie. It's a
I remember
dad
I was
fantasy.
like 30 years old in Austin, and I had, the gut came on officially, and I was like, oh, I'm officially a man. I'm officially a Mexican man. This is brought on by a lot of Miller Lite and a lot of frijoles and a lot of barbacoa.
And then you said to your friends, let's start a band, rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
Gentlemen, 23 years ago, a movie came out that changed our life. Selena, we honor her with our Running the Back rendition of it. For Chris, Chuco Life, for Andrew, Murder Mecca, thank you, gentlemen. See you next time.
Good times.
Okay, that is the show. That is the episode. That is the movie Selena for this week on Running It Back. I want to thank my guests, Andrew Ramirez, Chris Cordova. Check out their Instagram sites and pages. The Chuco Life for Chris, Murder Mecca for Andrew, and if you're new to the channel, check out the old episodes of Running It Back right here on YouTube. I talk to a lot of different people, a lot of interesting stuff, and of course, a little humor coming from old PAT. I want to thank everyone who listened to the show. Be on the lookout for future episodes as well. Wow, 1997. What a year. What a time. Music, fashion. A lot of stuff happened then. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Be on the lookout for more episodes, and I'll see you soon.